Okay, I guess we'll just go ahead and get started. So first of all, you guys, thank you for being here with us. We really appreciate you taking the time to log in. We realize it's lunchtime, so hopefully we'll get some more participants that will join us in just a minute. It's like, and my slides don't want to, but there they go. So I would like to just take a minute for each of you to just kind of share, like, what did you personally do over the break to just kind of help fill your cup, like kind of help fill you personally as a human. So Jared, would you like to start?
Sure. Sorry, I had to find my unmute. I just did a lot of, since we weren't going anywhere, we weren't getting together with extended family, we were just holding up kind of our core group of family here. Just took some time to do things like read as a family and, do puzzles as a family. And, I actually got to read a novel for fun, which I hadn't done in, well, I guess since last holiday break. Just take some time to do other things, which was wonderful, even though there were that many days that I had off, but it was great. So
that's awesome, Jared. Thank you. Teresa, what about you?
Hey, so let's think here. I think it's the same thing as Jared. It was just kind of a different holiday, just staying around. And I think going on walks and being outside was a big one for me. It was really nice. We have a goal to go on, this is kind of funny, but 1,000 miles for walking over the year, which sounds like a lot, but you break it down, it ends up being like, I can't remember, like 80 something miles a month, which is like 19 and a quarter a week, which is like 2.75 a day. Really not that much. So that's what we've been doing lately. And it's really nice stress relief. And now that the sun stays out later, it's nicer. So
that's great. Great. Jessica, what about you?
I just spent a lot of time with family and relaxed, maybe did some house chores that have been neglected. Just lived normal life and it was beautiful.
That's awesome. Sorry, there's somebody that I just let into the waiting or into the room that I'm not sure. So if you guys can double check on that one, but I believe it's good. So I have Katie here today. So Katie, would you just like to give us a little idea? And she'll introduce herself later, but Katie, will you just talk to us a little bit about what you did over the break for yourself?
Yes, I did, very similar to what you all shared, but one of the things that I did that really filled my cup was I put together a photo book for every year, and I wait until the end of the year to do it. Every year I think I'm not going to do that, but it ended up being amazing that I waited because it allowed me an opportunity to go back through the year, reflect on the connections I was able to make, mostly with my, core little family. But yeah, I loved putting together that book and looking at pictures from the year and just some of the fun adventures we took to the park and to the mountains.
Perfect. And Kathy, what about you?
Just home. Our district was really adamant about trying to stay off your computer for 2 weeks, and I did it. As far as work stuff, I really tried to let go. So my adult children were home. We played lots of Settlers of Catan, and my 82-year-old mother lives up the street, so I was able to spend time with her. So just being home. So it was a good break.
Perfect. Lorraine, what about you?
Well, I got to put my bedroom together. Long story. It's still not all done, but at least I have a room with a door and I can shut it. Long story. Anyway, and just tried to unwind.
Perfect. What about Linda?
My daughter and son-in-law and grandson were in town, so I got to spend some time. He was about 14 months at the time, so chasing him around and playing with him, that was lots of fun.
That's awesome. Kim, what about you?
Can you see me? So mine was pretty chillax. We were able to spend a little bit of time with family because both my in-laws and my parents have both had COVID already. So we were able to spend a little bit of time with them, more so than we probably would have been able to if they hadn't have had COVID. And then we just stayed home and just did absolutely no work at all and just enjoyed being home and not having to worry about the day-to-day struggles and life and things like that. So we just stayed pretty chill the whole time.
Sounds great. I was going to say, what about Christy?
Is there only one Christy?
Yes, at the moment.
Okay. All right. I had COVID, so I didn't do much. We didn't get together with any family or anything. We just stayed at home and in the house most of the time. So nothing fun or spectacular, just being sick.
Are you feeling better?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Good. Michonne, what about you?
Well, we had a quiet Christmas, but we did go to St. George for a few days and tried to get a little bit of warmth. It wasn't super warm, but it was still nice to get out. And we did some rock climbing and just saw movies and played games, and it was just nice.
Perfect. And then I know the rest of you kind of joined in a little bit afterwards, but the question should be up on the screen. If any of you have other things that you would like to add, in particular, I will take turns with each and every one of you. So Leanne, what about you?
Well, I'm not sure I was able to fill my cup. We had 8 family members who got COVID, not in my household, but my daughter and her husband and my son and his family. And my son-in-law ended up in ICU and was there for 17 days, I think, total, ended up getting MRSA from the oxygen tubing and all of that while he was in there. And so today is the first day that they are all out of quarantine and back to work. But I tended to be the COVID delivery system, taking games to the grandkids. 4 of the grandkids had it. And so I would take Nintendo and all of that, or meals to their door. And it's just been, it was crazy. So it wasn't really the relaxing break that I had hoped for. But we're doing good now. We are great. And we've already got vaccines. So we're at least the first dose, we're on our way.
Well, I'm glad to hear that everybody is somewhat back to normal, Leanne. That doesn't sound very relaxing. Brittany, what about you?
I did a whole lot of nothing but spending time with my family, which was good. So I didn't do a lot of work. So it was a break.
Good. Stephanie, what about you?
Is there only one Stephanie?
Yes.
I think so. I did the same kind of thing, just hanging out with family, and I'm enjoying time not working, and yeah, that's about it.
Okay. And then if we can hear from Emily, then Jennifer Salazar, and then Tara Boswell.
I was the same way. I did, Nan gave me a 2,000 piece puzzle that was amazing. So I did puzzles, hung out with family, relaxed, didn't work, it was just a great break.
Perfect.
Hi. Honestly, we were pretty lazy too. We didn't do a whole lot. I spent time with my husband and my 4 kids, and it was just kind of relaxing and quiet. We have a newer puppy, so he was busy. But other than that, it was kind of nice.
Great.
We skied, and that was wonderful. So that was definitely the highlight of my break, which seems very long ago.
I'm sure that it does. Can I hear from Nanette and then Madeline and Kelly?
Yeah, same thing. I think this is the first time in all my years I've been in admin in Granite District that we got 2 full weeks with weekends on the ends, and they gave admin the whole entire time. So it was amazing. I didn't realize how much I needed it. And it was like, we got a break, our COVID reports went down. It was great. It was just good to be able to not have to have my head in that world 24/7 like we do some days. It was great.
That's great.
Okay, I did a lot of what everyone else did, just enjoyed family. I did a lot of sledding and puzzles, and just not having to think about work for a couple weeks was super nice.
Perfect.
Oh, and I can't get my video working. Oh, there we go. And for me, it was about the same. We did sledding and family time, which I didn't know if we would get. So family time was good, and it was a good break.
Perfect. And if we can hear from Tamara and Christy Whiteside and Michelle Webster.
So same as everybody else, just lots of great family time. And we did get to meet the girlfriends' parents and entertain them. So that was kind of fun. We're hoping for better news or big news soon.
Congratulations.
So for me, same thing. I spent time with my kids. We skied quite a bit and got to spend some time outside. So it was nice. It was a good break.
Great.
So for me, I had to think back when we even had a break. Like, what break are they talking about? So I'm hoping referring to Christmas break, and it was just family time and hanging out. So it was great.
Perfect. And then if I can hear from Fran and then Lisa, who I will introduce in a minute as well.
So we got hit with COVID at my house over Christmas. So the 4 other people in my house all tested positive, and I had 2 negative tests, but symptoms. So they said I was probable. So we spent a lot of family time being quarantined at home and resting and reading and just being home. So it was awesome.
Would you like me to introduce myself really quick, Jamie?
Well, as I say, you'll have a whole slide, Lisa, but if you just want to talk about what you did over the break, that would be great.
Excellent, excellent. Same as a lot of you, just kind of took a deep sigh of relief that we all made it until the holidays and spent time with families and was a little looser with exercise and food and work. It was really nice.
Great. And I know that there are a couple other people that have joined, but my screen, since I'm sharing, doesn't allow me to see everyone. So if there's anyone that I have missed that would like to answer the question that's displayed on the screen, I'll give you a couple of seconds to, or I'll give you a couple minutes to do so. I think there was Amanda and maybe someone else. Okay, so I just wanted to let you guys know today's agenda, we're going to have, as discussed in one of our previous meetings, we just kind of asked, like, as a field, what do you want to know and how can we support you? And a lot of you had said that you wanted some more self-care for your teachers and your staff. And so I have invited Katie Peterson to come and talk to us about that today. So we'll introduce her a little bit more in a minute. We do first are going to start, well, we'll have district share out with Park City. We'll do some special education updates, professional development updates. We'll have some questions from the field. And just remember, like throughout the month, if you guys have questions that come up, go ahead and email them to us. In every preschool roundtable meeting that we have, we'll open it up so that you guys can collaborate with one another as experts, as different things that you may have questions about. And then we'll just talk about minus registration. So I would like to take some time to introduce Lisa Young and just let her talk about what her role is at USBE. But she is on the quality instruction team. So Jessica and I both contacted Lisa a little while ago and just asked her if she would be willing to help support our administration like you guys are. So Lisa, go ahead.
Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, and I'm so thrilled to be here and to have the opportunity to peek into your world. As a former teacher and instructional coach and principal, our littlest learners are so close to my heart. I mean, just seeing you and thinking about today, I have all these little memories of our little preschoolers trying to get on the bus and off the bus and navigating lunch and navigating learning and growing up. It's so fun. So I'm really honored to be here. And why am I here? My hope is that I can provide service to you. My primary role is to support educational leadership across our state. And so you are educational leaders, and I would love to learn if I can support you as you continue to develop as leaders. And also, I would like to learn if there's opportunities for me to better support our principals to better support you in both the role, your role as leaders, and also to really understand what early childhood looks like and how they can support your programs. So thank you for allowing me to be part of today, and that is my intention.
Does anybody have any questions for Lisa before we get started? I kind of told her that today she can kind of just watch Roundtable and get to know each of you, and kind of the programs and the great things that you guys are doing. But she'll have kind of a better understanding of.
Jamie, will you unmute?
I just noticed it clicked to mute and I was like, okay. So just know that Lisa is here specifically to help support leaders and to do a great job. And so we were really excited to have her join this team. So Kathy, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing because Kathy Anderson is here to do the district share out for Park City. And Kathy worked very closely with Jennifer Schwindeman. I always wonder if I say that correctly, Kathy. So if I didn't, please correct me. Kathy, you're muted.
Okay, I'm just babbling on and on. I'm so sorry. You think I would know how to do these? We've done enough of these meetings. But anyway, what I wanted to say is Jen Schwindeman, our special ed director, has a little 3-year-old who's adorable, not her own, but he has cerebral palsy and is not doing in-person school. So he's at her office every Monday at this time. So she probably will not be in here, but she contributed with me. So here we go. Everybody see that? Okay. All right. So Jen Schwindeman is our preschool special education director. And this year, for the first time in 10 years, we have a second special ed director. So that's helpful just because we're getting more and more kiddos as we go. Okay, why is this? Oh, there we go. Is this the second slide? Okay, yeah. Okay, celebrating progress and accomplishments. What have we accomplished? We've been able to be in school since September 2nd. So we're very happy about that. Our district has provided, it should say, plexiglass dividers and adequate PPE to our preschool staff. Our attendance is actually way up from previous years, thanks to the wearing of the masks. I know I'm looking at our attendance this year compared to last, and there's so many more kids. I'll go in a classroom and the teacher will say, all customers are here today. So we've had a lot of good attendance. Starting on January 14th, staff has been able to start receiving their first COVID-19 vaccine, which I know a lot of you also are in that same boat. And then something else a lot of you probably already aware of, but Class Dojo has been a great app to share information with families. So I'm going to speak to that just a little bit. And I don't see the chat, so I guess if there's questions or whatever, just blurt it out as I go. So Class Dojo, have any of you used Class Dojo? Yes, no, maybe? Okay.
Lots of
We
nods.
have teachers using it.
Okay. And we started a couple years ago with it. One of our elementary schools, the principal had every staff member use it. And so preschool, we thought, well, we'll just dive into it a little bit. And then last March, when we went remote, that's how a lot of teachers shared information and did their lessons. But anyway, Class Dojo, it's a great app for sharing information with families, especially since they can't come into the classroom. So I have access to everybody's Class Dojo. We're a smaller district, obviously. We only have 9 classrooms, as it'd be impossible to keep up with at Granite or any of the other big districts, Davis. But so this just shows you some of the different classes. And I just went on one of our teachers' class. She sent this home last week. Public speaking. Don't forget to bring your snow people back to school next week to share. Also, people are setting up parent-teacher Zoom conferences on Class Dojo. What we found that's so successful with this is some of our families don't have computers at home, obviously, but it seems that every single student, someone in the home has a cell phone, a smartphone. So parents are able to access this through their smartphones, and it translates for you also. So if you send a message home to the families, it will translate to Spanish. You can also check and see how many people have viewed it. People can send you messages privately. It's just been a great tool for us to use this year. So Class Dojo's been a huge plus. And this year I did require that everybody have a Class Dojo account, and they have to post on there at least once a week. But like I said, the pictures are priceless. Parents are just so thankful to see what's happening since they can't be in. Our 10th year in 4 elementary schools. We now also have full day classes for 4-year-olds at all of our elementary schools in Park City, Monday through Thursday. On the left is just some of our teachers when they had a little drive-by before school started. Each of the kids got little bags with a mask and a gator and information handbook. So I can't see this because I've got the people here, sorry. Okay, our staff has been working extremely hard, just like all of you have, to keeping our little ones in school. We keep them spread apart for contact tracing, and in our full day classes, they do all rest. We call it a brain break. We don't call it a nap. If you call it a nap, they get very upset. So it's a brain break. And so many of the kids want to keep their mask on. We have them spread out pretty far, but so far we've had, knock on wood, we haven't had any cases of COVID spread at school. We've had students get it from parents and siblings at home, but we haven't had any, like I said, knock on wood yet. So what are we excited about this year? Excited to implement the new Utah Early Childhood Standards. We're excited to have an additional preschool special education teacher. We're excited still to have the help and guidance of Nanette Barnes and the amazing preschool staff at Granite School District. I feel like we're kind of a little island, and I can always reach out to Nan with questions, and she's amazing. And so I'm so thankful for that support and the support from the state. We're excited to continue our partnership with the Philadelphia School, utilizing project-based learning and utilizing loose parts in the afternoons of our full day 4-year-old classes. This has been a lot trickier with COVID. We were really delving into this last year before COVID hit. Philadelphia School is just a private school in Philadelphia. The lady that founded the school lives here part-time in Park City. And the first year we started our program, she was our evaluator. We have the Park City Education Foundation that donates money every year to offset tuition. And so part of that funding is they have somebody come in and observe our program and evaluate it. And this lady came in, amazing woman that founded this school. And so we still use We Can and follow that guidance, but also do some project-based learning in the afternoon with the students. And there's just an example of some of the kids working with loose parts. And it's just kind of centers what you already do anyway, but a lot of, you just let them create, let them come up with what they want at the center. And another thing we're doing is called Toolbox. And last year, Park City School District preschool teachers were introduced to the Toolbox project by our behavior specialist, Dr. Jamie Kidder. It's a research-based social emotional learning program that builds and strengthens children's resilience, self-mastery, and empathy for self and others. So it's basically just these tools, and there's a tool for each of these different items, a breathing tool. So that's the first one that you teach. I calm myself and check in. And it's just basically each of the tools has a little symbol to it, listening tool, personal space tool. But it's been so much fun to watch these kids, you know, tell someone else, I need to use my personal space tool right now. And it's garbage can tool is great if something's bothering someone. I use this a lot with my staff too. If they're have a disgruntled parent or something, I'll say you just throw that in the garbage can. 2020, we also invented our own toilet tool, which we don't really use with the kids, but you can also flush something down if it's making you nuts. But the main thing is that helps children be aware of having the knowledge of what tool they can use to help them manage in life. And we've had such good feedback from our parents. We're like, yeah, my daughter told me the other day I need to use my patience tool. What did she mean? And so now I'm sending more information home with parents. We'll start parent-teacher conferences February 1st, and teachers will be sharing this information so they can use the same language at home. But I hope this works. Oh, you know what? Oh, I think it does. Jared said there was something I needed to push for this to work, Jared. I can just hit go, correct? I think. Anyway,
Go ahead and try it, and
okay.
If we don't hear it, then we'll look for the
Okay,
audio.
so this is our special ed director's daughter, so we're allowed to use it, even though she's home in her pajamas. Jen Schwendeman said absolutely. So this was one night when she was explaining to her mom what she'd been learning at school. Whoops, here we go. Try that again.
Okay, tell me, what did you learn today?
You're breathing. When you get mad,
Yeah.
you use your breathing tool and then do the teacher and then.
Okay, show me how you use your breathing tool. Does that help you calm down?
Gentle.
Does it help you calm down?
And then, okay.
So basically, there's just a little symbol for the kids, and I see them use it on the playground. If they're having, you know, an issue with another student, it's just so cute to watch them just stop whatever they're doing and use their little tool. One topic I'm hoping to learn from my colleagues at the preschool LEA meetings is how the professional development for the new early standards is going. So I'm hoping to learn that. And that is basically it. So I will stop sharing my screen. Any questions? Bueller, anyone?
Kathy, I have a question about Class Dojo. This is Michonne in Weber, and I know a lot of teachers used Class Dojo some years ago, but then we were kind of told not to use it because of privacy issues or something, and I didn't know if that was statewide or maybe it's just district-wide, but have you had any pushback or any troubles with privacy issues with that?
We haven't, because we tell the families that anything listed in the dojo is just for that class. None of that is going on social media. It's just for the parents. And if some parents, you know, I think we have one parent, and it's a parent of a special ed student that just doesn't want their child's picture on there with the special ed staff right there helping them. They want them to look like everybody else, and I totally understand that. But no, I did get permission from our superintendent, you know, as long as it's only shared within that premise of that class. So I know that Seesaw, some of our I think K through third grade are using Seesaw in some of the schools. McPullen Elementary is all school-wide Class Dojo, and that's what we use as well. So
okay,
no.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I have offices in 2 different schools, and of course I picked the school that just scheduled a fire drill at 1. So I might be getting off real quick, and then I'll get back on from another location. So anyway, thank you all.
Well, Kathy, I'm glad that we decided to have this at this time then, because it would be really hard to present during a fire drill. Huh?
I know, I saw that when I pulled into the school and I saw that email. I thought, of course it's today, but anyway.
Kathy, thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
So now we're going to take some time, you guys, to do some self-care and stress management as requested. And so I would like to take some time to introduce Katie Peterson. Katie Peterson comes to us. She is a licensed clinical social worker that works with Utah Community Action with the Head Start program, and she focuses mainly on trauma-informed practices and how to embed those. And so Katie, I almost called you Kathy because I just got done talking to Kathy, right? So, but Katie is a mother of 2. She has a 2.5-year-old named Jacob and a 6-month-old named Jane. And Katie, I love that because my son, my oldest, is Jacob, and then I have a daughter.
but her name is not Jane, it's Brian. But I just want to take some time to just introduce Katie and then just let you know that she'll take it from here. Katie, do you want to share the screen? Or are you just going to do discussion?
I can share my screen.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see here. Oh, wait, can you guys see that? Yet? Probably not.
I cannot. Okay.
There we go. There we go. Now, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to talk about something that I am very passionate about, which is self-care and embedding trauma-informed practices into our classrooms. So thank you so much for inviting me. Before we get started, I just want to invite you all, and I should have started the slideshow prior to sharing my screen because now it won't let me make it bigger, but you get the point and I can send it out after. But if you could, I invite you to just close your eyes or keep them open. We're going to start with an activity that we embed into our classroom. We're going to talk about these cards a little bit later, but close your eyes or keep them open, whatever you're comfortable with. And we're going to repeat some things out loud. And I think we're all muted except for me. So feel free to shout them as loud as you need to. This exercise is from our mindfulness cards for kids, and it is called the I am kind activity. So repeat after me. I am kind to myself. I am kind to others. I speak kind words. Kindness begins with me. Thank you for participating in that with me. I think sometimes when we think about mindfulness and self-care, we have specific ideas of what it looks like and what it should be. And so I'd love to start with an affirmation or a mindfulness chant of sorts, because I don't think that's typically at least what our kids think of. They think of taking big, deep breaths and calming their body that way. But there's so many ways that we can get creative with this. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So what does the research say? Prior to COVID, 500,000 teachers were leaving the profession each year. That's a turnover rate of about 20%. That's alarming. That's a lot of teachers leaving the profession. New research that was conducted this last fall, indicated that 27% are leaving their jobs or retiring early because of the pandemic specifically. And researchers believe that this number will continue to increase as teachers continue to report feeling that they're barely keeping their head above water. So what does the research tell us? Teachers have always experienced stress, right? That's not a new thing. However, the new layer of stress that COVID or the pandemic or other, other factors occurring right now within our world, they're adding an additional layer of stress that are impacting teachers and maybe my ability to adapt to that stress. So some of our teachers that were maybe experiencing stress prior to COVID are barely hanging on now. And largely that's because our coping skills, our strategies for self-care have had to change drastically during this time, right? The strategies that we put in place prior to COVID no longer work because for many of us, they include people and connection. And we've had to find a new and strategic way to develop those connections and continue those relationships in this realm of safety, right? I think another reason why we're seeing the research that the data that we're seeing is because we're being impacted on all different levels, right? Where teachers previously may have been experiencing stress related to their job and maybe not personally, what we're seeing now is that we're being impacted on all levels, personally, emotionally, spiritually, professionally, right? Our stress across the board is being impacted. And we're not used to that potentially. And so we're seeing burnout much quicker than previously in many professions. And I think that just speaks to the reality that individuals, people, we're wired for connection, right? We're not made to live lives of isolation. We're made to connect with people. We're made to have physical contact with individuals. And there's real emotional impacts when we don't. And we're seeing that now. So let's just quickly talk about how stress impacts the brain, because I think this is really important as we think about embedding self-care strategies into the workplace or personally into our personal lives. So overwhelming stress and exposure to trauma, which we could say we're having a shared collective experience with trauma right now during the pandemic, it turns our learning brain into a surviving brain. Our brain is literally not able to learn new things because its full-time job is keeping us safe. Its full-time job is surviving. And that's true for the kids in school too, right? When we're asking them to learn new concepts, when we're asking them to learn new social skills, emotional skills, and they're struggling with that, part of it is because their brain is not able to retain that information the way that it was previously. And so we have to add something in to teach that brain, hey, wait a second, you're safe right now. You don't need to be in survival mode right now. Let's learn, make that shift. And that takes time. But that is something that's occurring in the brain when it is overwhelmed with stress. So another thing that's happening is in the face of danger or stress, right? Our limbic system, which is the portion of the brain that is concerned with or focused around arousal or emotion, with arousal, and it is activated, right? And you're going to see this on the next slide. I'm going to switch the slide. How many of you have seen this hand model of the brain, right? So if your hand represents the brain and your thumb is that emotional piece, right? The amygdala piece of the brain responsible for emotion, sensing danger, communicating with the body and the brain. When we call it flipping the lid, right? When we experience stress or trauma, our brain literally flips its lid. And so the prefrontal cortex of the brain, the part that's wired to help us make decisions, is not able to function. And our brain is flooded with that emotion, that sense of danger, and again, that survival instinct. It's not until we can calm the lid, right, that our prefrontal cortex, this portion of the brain right here, can do its job. And so another visual of that is, we have the sensory input or trauma, stress, the emotional, the typical brain can look at the emotions being experienced. Our brain can assess it and say, oh, danger, danger, danger. I know what to do. I know how to make these decisions. I know how to navigate this. And we have a balanced response. When there's trauma or when our lid is flipped, we never get to this piece. So we stay in this being of hyperactivity, hyperarousal, and we react, right, with that fight, flight, or freeze response, so that our brain is protecting us. It's doing its job. Sometimes that's not necessary. right? But our brain is hardwired to keep us safe. And so it senses danger and it responds. And until we, like I said, until we figure out how to bring that lid back down to tell our brain, wait a second, I am calm, I am safe, I don't need to be flipped right now. Our brain operates in that survival mode. So let's just define secondary trauma and burnout really fast, because I'm sure you all have a good definition of what stress is. None of us are exempt from it. I wish we were. But secondary trauma really refers to that experience that we have when we hear about another person's trauma. And for so many of our teachers, this increased dramatically when COVID hit, right? And we started providing virtual services. They were getting glimpses into people's homes and interactions with parents that maybe they've known were real, maybe they've known were present, but they didn't see them firsthand. And so it provided a different layer of stress, a different layer of secondary stress. And burnout really speaks to what happens when we leave secondary stress and stress, our own stress, left open. We're not responding to those. Burnout is literal physical and emotional exhaustion, where we cannot perform the job that we've been performing or maybe felt even successful in before. Our job satisfaction decreases. We feel powerless. We feel overwhelmed. Maybe we have a hard time getting out of bed. Maybe we have a hard time connecting with people around us. And this is what we want to avoid. We want to avoid that burnout for our teachers, for yourselves, and for all of us, right? We all want to feel successful in the workplace. So what are some signs that we can look for in our teachers who may be experiencing secondary trauma? Sadness or grief, avoidance or dread. Are there some kiddos that maybe they avoid reaching out to, that they avoid calling for that check-in or classroom meeting? They're a reduced sense of empathy. Are they talking about their kids, the kids in their class, a different way? Are they talking about their coworkers in a different way? Are they talking about overall experience with teaching differently? Somatic complaints. This is really common. Headaches, tightness in the jaw, tightness in the back, stomach aches. I was going to say tummy aches because I'm used to talking to kids about this. Tummy aches. Maybe an increase in addiction, caffeine addiction, drugs and alcohol, sleep concerns. Maybe they're sleeping too much or sleeping too little. Maybe they're not able to fall asleep or they're not able to wake up. They're hard to get out of bed. Maybe they're missing work more frequently than they did before. Changes in their core beliefs about the world, about people and interactions in general. And decrease in those attachments. And somatic concerns is on there twice. I must really like that one. And then when we are looking for burnout, we want to look for all of those symptoms or all of those qualifiers. And then we want to look for a couple of others as well. We want to look for, there's usually a little bit more anger and frustration, negativity, criticism. Some of those angry feelings associated with the experience that they're in. Maybe negative interactions with their coworkers or with you all. And again, just chronic fatigue. So let's talk about self-care, because that's why I'm here, right? All of those things that we've talked about, I really believe, and the research shows, that we can put things into place to reduce secondary trauma, to reduce stress in general, to reduce burnout. And the key word in this definition of self-care is active role, right? Self-care is defined as taking an active role in protecting your well-being and happiness, particularly during periods of stress. Now, I think sometimes people get confused by that active piece, right? Because we can't just do some things we love and feel that we're doing self-care. We have to be mindful and intentional about the way that we're putting protective factors into place for us. I have a picture of flying back in the day when we used to be able to travel. I'm sure anyone could remember what they say when they give us a safety message about oxygen masks. If we were together, I would ask you. But they say there's two pieces of guidance that they give us. Put your mask on first before assisting others. And the second one is not often talked about. It is the reminder to breathe normally. Isn't that interesting? Why do you think they challenge us to breathe normally? I can't see everyone, but if anyone has thoughts about that, feel free
Well,
to
I
shout it
do,
out.
Katie. I
Yeah.
just remember it makes me think of the first time I ever snorkeled. And I was so nervous when I put my face in the water, it was just so counterintuitive to continue breathing.
Yes.
And when your face is in the water, you can hear your breathing. And so I could hear how fast and shallow my breath was. And obviously that's not going to be as good. So I just think anytime we're in a period of stress, we breathe a lot quicker and shallower, and then it's not doing what it needs to do to help our brains with our oxygen.
Yes, perfect, exactly. Thank you for that example. When we are needing oxygen, we have to breathe normally to allow the oxygen to get fully into our lungs, right? Doesn't get oxygen into our lungs, and the big deep breaths doesn't get enough oxygen into our lungs fast enough, right? We have to breathe normally and intentionally to get our body what it needs. The same is true for self-care. If I knew that reading really helped me relax, and let's say I'm like, oh, I'm going to participate in some self-care. I'm going to let myself read. But I read for 10 hours of the day, right? So I was taking really long, big breaths. Would that help reduce my stress? Probably not, because I would be neglecting other roles and other jobs and tasks I have to complete. On the other side, if reading reduces my stress and I read really fast, right? I'm like, okay, I'm going to do some self-care. I'm going to read for 30 seconds. I'm going to read one line and I'm doing self-care, right? So is that helpful? No, it's not. That's not self-care, even though I'm telling myself it is. I took 2 minutes for myself. I read a line or two. I did my self-care for the day. That's not helpful. And so we want to do the guidance that they give us on airplanes. We want to breathe normally. We want to respond normally. We want to implement our self-care strategies with confidence and with consistency and breathe normally, right? So why is self-care important? We want to be effective in our jobs. And when we're stressed and overwhelmed, our lid is flipped, we cannot be effective in our jobs. We don't feel good, right? We don't feel good at all. I don't know about you, at least I don't feel good when I'm stressed. We want our teachers to feel successful in their jobs. We want them to have balance between work and personal life. We want them to model that healthy balance for the children in their class, right? And we can't pour from an empty cup. I love that we started with that exercise. Thank you, Jamie, because we have to fill our cups, sometimes 1,000 times each day. And we also have to do that mindfully, right? We need to be aware of when our cup is being poured from, when our cup is being depleted, so we can fill it up. We don't want to be over spilling. That's not helpful. But we need to mindfully fill our cup as soon as it's depleted. So I love this wheel, and I can send you, Jamie, I'm going to send you this wheel so that you can send it out to the individuals on the call. But I love this wheel because I think sometimes when we think of self-care, we have our like 5 basic things that we stick to, right? Like maybe we move our body in some kind of way. Maybe we eat something yummy. Maybe we, connect with one person. We all have our like core self-care things that we turn to every time. But I think it's really interesting to recognize that there's 6 different areas of ourselves and our lives that we can implement self-care practices into. And taking a minute to really look at those. I wonder if I can zoom in. Oh, can you guys see it better now? Okay. Taking a moment to really look at, these 6 different areas: our physical life, our professional life, our psychological life, our psychological well-being, our emotional well-being, our spiritual well-being, and our personal well-being, and really seeing where do we tend to fall when we're looking at how we take care of ourselves. Do we tend to fall into one piece of this puzzle, or do we have strategies across the board that we're comfortable implementing? Because what we know also is that the same type of self-care, the same activity for self-care is not going to work every time, right? We need to have our tool belt full of skills that we can pull from, because I may run into a situation that causes me stress and say, oh, I know what to do. I'm going to call this friend. They always help me. They always make me feel better, help reduce my stress, and I give them a call and they're not available. Now what? I tried and my support wasn't available. Do I know where to go next? So I'm going to email this to you, and when you get this wheel, they also provide you with a blank wheel. And I encourage you to go through and really examine some of the examples they provide you in each piece of this puzzle and see where you're doing really well. Where do you fall? And what areas of the puzzle do you want to increase your strategies for self-care? This is something we've provided our teachers. And we did a training around this for our teachers, and we provided them this wheel, and we walked them through doing this for themselves as well. And we encouraged them, and we'll talk about this later when we're talking about specific strategies, but we encouraged them. There's an area of the puzzle for professional self-care, but we gave them 2 blank wheels, and we wanted them to identify things that they could do outside of work in each of these domains, and things that they could do inside of the workplace in each of these domains, so that they have their buckets are full, right? Their tool buckets are full. They know in those moments, they may not be able to recall really fast what they can do to eliminate or alleviate some of the stress they're experiencing. But if it's posted up somewhere, they can glance over and say, okay, yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do right now. That's going to help me feel better. And so I would encourage you to walk through this exercise with your teachers and your staff and see where they feel successful, where they feel like they need support, and have them identify areas where they can grow or develop their skills.
Katie, there's a comment in the chat box from Leanne.
Yeah.
And it says that they've been trying to do self-care bingos, word jams, challenges, etc., with our staff each month. And then they have PD to help them keep this balance and just having an empathetic interaction. So she says our husbands try to support, but they don't really understand what it is like for us right now. So
yes. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's a great idea. Self-care bingo. And sorry, could you the last piece of that one more time?
Oh, she just talked about, it says, I often like that I am just driving on one wheel and 3 flat tires this year, but just talking about like how that wheel needs to kind of be completed in order for us to keep rolling. And so I love it.
Yes, you can't roll on one wheel. You may roll for a second. It's not going to be a smooth ride. So yeah, really making sure all of those tires are full, and not, maybe they don't have to be filled to capacity, but there's at least a little air in there so that one wheel can take most of the pressure sometimes, right? Or most of the ride. And then you can rotate to the other one and it's a give and take relationship with yourself and self-care. But thank you for sharing. That's a great idea. So I want to talk a little bit about mindfulness, because I think mindfulness ties so importantly into self-care. As we talked about on the previous slide, self-care is taking an active role in anything you enjoy, but being intentional and active in that strategy. And that's why I love mindfulness, because, you know, it drives from Buddhist meditations, but it's really about being aware of your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, how they impact you, and being in the present moment, right? Paying attention to that present moment experience with a non-judgmental attitude. So really saying, I'm running on three flat wheels and one is full, and that's okay. Not judging that, but that's where you are right now. And can you see my screen still? I'm trying. Oh, you can? Okay, sorry, had something pop up. So not judging that and saying, this is my reality right now. I'm doing the best I can. I've got one full, and that's going to be okay for now. But really, when we're implementing stress management strategies, self-care, is doing it with intentionality. I love this quote. It says, you're either present or you're not. And if you're not, you're in autopilot. Your mind is ruminating on the past or the future events, pulling you out of your present experience, which is where life happens. How important is that reminder for us that it's so easy to get pulled. It's so easy to be stuck in the future or the past. And that's often when we feel most stressed, right? When we're thinking about the future, or we're focused on what our experience is now versus what it was like in the past. And so if we can stay in the present moment, be intentional about the self-care strategies that we're implementing, be mindful about them, implement mindfulness, because what we know, what the research shows, do I have a slide about this? Yes, what the research shows is that it helps that lid flip, right? That's why mindfulness is important. It helps that lid flip back down. It connects the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. It allows our prefrontal cortex to respond instead of react. It also actually changes our brain chemistry. How amazing is that? They have done CAT scans and brain scans where they can see that following mindfulness activities, the amygdala is less activated. The gray area, the gray matter density is less. And so right there, we are learning, sorry, my tongue getting tongue-tied. Right there, we are learning that mindfulness actually significantly changes brain functioning. Wow, that's amazing. And so if we can integrate it into the classroom, if we starting at a young age and provide our young kids the skills that they need to have mindful interactions, to be present, to be intentional in the way that they're engaging, what could happen to their brains long term? It's so fascinating to me. There's not enough research about that, right? About what that could be, especially for those children who are so young right now in the midst of the pandemic. So I'm hopeful that there is more research about that to come. But here's what we do know about mindfulness. It reduces depression. It reduces anxiety. It improves concentration. It increases energy. It improves relationships and connections to emotional intelligence and creativity. It boosts immunity. It increases compassion. And that's compassion for others and ourselves. It reduces stress, right? That's why we're talking about it today. And it decreases physical pain. So I'm going to skip this. and this, and just go to here because I want to spend some time talking about specific strategies. So I want to talk with you a little bit about what Head Start is doing and what we're doing for our teachers and the kiddos enrolled in Head Start. Leanne, I believe it was, Leanne mentioned they are doing self-care bingo. How amazing is that? An opportunity to talk about self-care, practice, do something fun together and build that collaboration amongst the team. We do something similar, but different. We do an activity as well. We have a self-care challenge annually. And then we do a check. We've started doing a smaller check-in challenge in the spring, but each fall we do a challenge where we ask staff to pick a self-care practice that they want to implement for the month. They choose a buddy at work that they check in with. This is all optional, obviously, but they track how successful they are throughout the month, and then they submit that to me as part of the trauma-informed team. And they write up a little bio. And honestly, the most meaningful piece of that is the bio, the reflective piece that they have at the end of the month to say, hey, wow, this was a lot harder than I anticipated it to be. I didn't make it through the month. I chose something that I thought I was going to be so successful at. And I realized, like, wow, it's hard. And I'm gonna try again. Or, wow, I got it. Like, this clicked for me. And I now have this new support in place. And also my buddy and I, we're like way closer than we were before because we relied on each other in a different way. And, you know, hearing their experience to reflect on trying something new is really meaningful for them. We provide prizes, which staff love. They're not big prizes, but they look forward to them. And then, like I said, we have an additional check-in later in the spring. We implemented this last year and we'll do it again this year, where we do another smaller self-care challenge. We have just recently started doing self-care bags for each staff member. This is not just for Head Start, but for Utah Community Action as a whole, where we provide them with some self-care items that they can utilize at home or in the workplace. We just provided them with, let's see, they just went out. It was, they got a little piece of Play-Doh or something that they could do with their hands. They got a little journal. They got some activity like prompts that they could write about with the journal piece. And they all got a little tester tube of some essential oils. And so we tried to hit a lot of different areas of self-care as we think about the wheel, right? And they and the strategies that they can put in place both at home and in the workplace. We are constantly talking about self-care. We provide every single training starts with a mindfulness activity, similar to what we did with the I am kind chant or experience today. We start every training with a mindfulness activity. We have had specific trainings related to self-care, burnout. We did a training on the burnout measures that we can utilize to increase staff awareness about what they are feeling. Are they feeling burnt out? And, you know, it was interesting, and I can send that measure over to you as well. It was really interesting because some of our staff on the scale showed that they're burnt out and they don't feel it. And they're like, wow, I had no idea I was being impacted the way that I am because I'm just going on autopilot, right? I'm here, I'm getting my job done, but it's impacting me more than I realized. And that's our goal with those trainings, is to increase awareness so that we can put supports in place. And some of this is helpful because, you know, we have a mental health team and we have the trauma-informed team who's providing these trainings throughout the year. And then we have a monthly newsletter that we send out to staff that has, again, some like quick tips. We include quick tips. We include really funny memes. Try to have like a funny corner, humor corner, and then we provide resources. So if they are feeling burnt out, if they are feeling like they need some mental health support, that they know where to go to access that. Recently, the executive team has implemented Self-Care Friday. This has really been impactful for staff. And what it is that on Fridays, staff can use 1 hour of work time to participate in self-care. They do not have to be on site. They can leave. They can do whatever they need to do during that time, but they do not have to clock out. So they can utilize, some staff will stay on site. Well, pre-COVID, they would stay on site and maybe have an extended lunch with coworkers. Maybe they would, most staff take it off site and they'll go hiking, or they'll go do something in nature, or spend time with family. And staff have loved that. They send a lot of feedback to the executive team about how they utilize that hour, and just thanking them for that. So providing that time within the workday has been really beneficial for our staff. We also, like I mentioned, we also implemented a feedback email where our staff had the capacity to email the executive team directly and ask for support. And that has been, we have seen that really make a difference for our frontline staff, because they feel like they have an ability to communicate with someone that can make change. Right? They know that when they talk to us, we have to talk to them, and it takes forever, right? Sometimes to initiate the change that needs to be made. So implementing this feedback email has given staff a direct line to talk to our executive director, Jen, and they provide her with all sorts of feedback about, and most of it is, we're feeling overwhelmed. We need support. What can we put into place? What can we do differently? And she shares that feedback with us, her managers, and we make change. And then we are embedding mindfulness into each of the classrooms. And I shared with you before these mindfulness cards. It's what we just did the beginning of the day beginning of the training activity from. But the expectation is that at the beginning circle activity each day, the teachers will go through a card. So the teacher will choose one card per week so the kids can really master the skill that they're learning. They're broken into different categories. And let's see here, if I can just share with you. They're broken up into categories. They have blue cards, which are mindful breathing and awareness. The orange cards are mindful feelings, kindness, and gratitude cards. The green cards are mindful senses. And the red cards are related to self-esteem and mindful affirmations. So the teachers choose a card and they go through the week practicing that card. Like I said, they introduce it at the first circle of the day. The kids practice the card, and then throughout the day, the expectation is when they see kids individually or as a group feeling overwhelmed, feeling big feelings, having a hard time concentrating, having a lot of energy in their body, or when they themselves are feeling overwhelmed, when they themselves are feeling like they can't rein the group in, when they themselves are feeling stressed, that they stop what they're doing and implement the card that they're working on. And what we're seeing is that the kids love it. They love it. They love learning the strategies. In fact, some of the feedback that we've gotten is that the kids will, when they sense that the classroom is feeling a little bit out of sorts for them and overwhelming for them, they will say, we need to do this. We need to do the activity. And I have one of them in here. I'm hoping that it works. Let me know if you can't hear it. This is Relax Like a Cat. So, oops. So this is the teacher, one of our teachers introducing it at the large group. You can tell it's the end of the week because they're really good at it. The kids are really good at it. And so they do it every day at circle time. Oh, can you hear it? I can't hear it. Can you hear it at all? Dang it. Okay, I'll just, I'll tell you.
Usually, Katie, if you go down to where your audio is at, where it's mute, where you can like see your audio, and it'll ask you sometimes to connect to the computer audio.
Oh.
See if that will work.
If you can't hear it though, maybe your computer is muted as a whole, like by your clock.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's what I was checking. It says it's at 100%. I don't know. Let's see if this works. Oh, I don't know. Okay, I'll tell you what's happening. So this is relax like a cat. So they're getting on all fours to relax like a cat. They're stretching their backs. They're now tightening their paws on the ground. They're touching their nose to their paws and they're smelling their paws. And then you could see they're loosening their paws and they're tightening their paws. Now their paws are now flat on the ground and they're stretching their backs. I wish I could read it to you. Let me see if I can hurry and find it in the cards. Because I think that would be, oh, I just turned to it. Okay, so it says, imagine you're a cat. Sit quietly and pay attention to your paws. Make them tight, count to 7 and relax them. Tighten your legs, let's count to 4 and relax them. Tighten your belly and your back, let's count to 7 and relax them. Tighten your face and your whiskers, count to 7 and relax them. So they're getting numbers, they're getting physical body recognition and tightening and loosening, and they're having fun together, right? And this teacher, Melissa, she's great at introducing these activities with her class, but what she finds is that, yeah, her kids will say, oh, I need to relax like a cat in the middle of an activity, right? When they feel their body shifting, when they feel the energy in the room shifting, they are turning to these mindfulness activities. And so they are having a really positive impact in the classroom. So we heard one individual who's saying they're doing self-care bingo. I'd love to hear from others of you. What supports are you putting into place right now to support your teachers in implementing self-care, either in the workplace or in their personal lives? How are you encouraging that?
I'm Emily from Granite School District. So every year we put on a conference once a year for our staff. We have professional development regularly throughout the year, but in January we do a conference. We bring in kind of some different types of presenters and allow a little more choice in the professional development and realm. And this year we definitely focused on opportunities for people to learn a little bit more about self-care, we had some folks from our wellness center come or do a presentation on the 5 pillars of health. So just providing some opportunities for our staff to be able to learn more about mental health, resources at NAMI, those kinds of things. So we had, I would say, 4 or 5 different sessions that really focused on those things, and people could self-select what sessions they wanted to go to. So if they really felt like it was something they needed, they had lots of different options and ideas.
Perfect. Thank you, Emily. That professional development piece is so important in providing opportunities with our staff to learn something new and to build their self-awareness is key when implementing self-care strategies.
I have one.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's really a self-care strategy in that proper sense where they're doing it, but something that I've really tried to do and encouraged my coaches and teacher leaders to do is to never email people outside of business hours. We used to have a big problem with that. A lot of people would email and a lot of work was being done outside of business hours. And so now we use the timed sender. So even if I'm working late, I can time it to send it so it's after they get to work. And I think that's helped a lot of our teachers stop checking their emails at night, stop worrying about work when they're at home. And that's made a big difference.
Huge, right? That culture of when you're at work, you work. When you're at home, you're not at work, right? It's hard for me. And I think it's hard for a lot of us right now as we're working remotely. That boundary between work and home is sometimes blurred. But I think it's so important because you're right. I think we set the expectation, we set the stage. So when we're sending emails at 10, 11 o'clock, even 6 o'clock, right? We're telling them that our expectation is that they're available, that they shouldn't be at home engaging in activities outside of work, that we need to hear from them, right? And that's not the case. Most of the time it's just, let me get this out of my mind before I forget, I need to tell you something, right? But yeah, I think you highlight something, which is that we really need to prioritize and create a culture where balance is important in work and professional life. Absolutely. What else? Thank you for sharing that. And that is definitely self-care.
Katie, this is Nanette from Granite. I'm just going to kind of pair on to what you've been saying. We've been doing, since last year, we started a lot of mindfulness in the classrooms and have really been focusing on social emotional learning. And it's been so interesting for us to watch exactly what you were saying when a teacher starts to learn those skills herself and when she will model for the kids. Boy, I'm feeling a little bit stressed right now. I'm going to stop and I'm going to take a couple of big breaths. Do you want to do it with me? It is so fascinating for us as our coaches have been reporting that, you know, that the teachers are naturally starting to model that themselves and use that, but then do a think aloud for the children so that they can see them. And it's been a really cool thing to see in the classrooms, to see the teachers start to naturally do that for themselves and to see the way it affects the kids.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm so happy to hear that they're doing that. I think if they let themselves get into that role, right, where they are modeling, where they are doing some of these cards, I think sometimes it can feel silly, right? And they're like, it's not super comfortable for them. But if we allow ourselves to do that, wow, that's going to be a transformative experience for us as teachers who are overwhelmed in the classroom and for the children. To one, see us having big feelings is really important. To see us getting overwhelmed, that's okay. It's more important that they're seeing that we know what to do, right? That they can too. They can have big feelings and know what to do. So important. What else?
Katie, there's a couple of comments in the chat box. One is, this is from Leanne. We've done a mindfulness program called Move This World. It's being used K through 12, and they include our preschoolers too. Simple yoga, mindfulness, etc. Then Brittany, also from Washington School District, in our weekly update sent to our teachers, we include something that encourages self-care and mindfulness.
Perfect. I love it. That's great. We do something similar. We send a weekly email to staff, letting them know what the priorities are of the week, things that they need to accomplish. And we always include a self-care tip in there. It's at the very top before they read any of the other email, because it's really important for them to start with that foundation of, okay, we need all these things from you, but we also recognize that you need to take care of yourself first so you can do all of these things. And that's something that we will continue to do. Another thing that we do is, you know, and this is hard because so many of our staff in classroom are conducting virtual services right now. But what we have done in the past and what we will do as soon as we're all on site is we do like hangers. We'll print like that self-care wheel, or we'll print some kind of self-care information or tip or something, and we hang it in all the bathroom stalls. We hang it up in common areas where people are going to see it. Maybe when they don't, just when they don't really need to be thinking about tasks and projects, right? And I think that's really helpful for staff to just have that constant reminder of strategies and tips and places that they can go for support, right? The more we see information, the more we can recall it, the more it's just embedded in us naturally. So that's one way that we get information out on a regular basis. Oh, is that a comment? It just turned yellow. Maybe I should have the chat box open.
No, you're okay. Jessica had to step out for a minute, so she made me the host.
Oh,
and so
okay.
What it meant is, she had to step away. So she's like, "You're now the host. I'll be back in a minute." And I'm like,
"Oh,
okay."
okay, perfect. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share or questions, thoughts, comments? Okay. I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that we have to practice what we preach, right? We have to be able to model for our teachers and set a value for self-care, right? We get to decide how, as an organization, or hopefully you get to decide. I don't really know how that works for you guys. But hopefully you're in the decision-making process where you get to be a part of those conversations, where you are determining the culture that the teachers are a part of, and the value placed on self-care and stress management. And part of that the best part of that is that it doesn't need to be anything big, right? Information is power, knowledge is power, and providing your staff with flyers, information, trainings, that's going to be sufficient, right? Because self-care is going to look different across the board. They have to come up with their own self-care routines. You can help them with that. You can model for them. You can create opportunities like with the wheel to do trainings where they can examine their own self-care practices. But it's ultimately up to them to fill their buckets or fill their cups, right? And so what we as directors, as administrators can do is provide them with the information and the resources that they need to be successful in doing that. So like I said, I'm going to email that self-care wheel to Jamie, along with a couple of other resources that we've used that our teachers have responded well to. And I'd love to hear how your staff are responding to them. If you find any other like infographics or information that you are sharing with your staff that goes, that is well received, I'd love to hear that as well. And if there aren't any questions, I think we're finished, but I want to open it up again if you have any questions. Okay.
Katie, I really appreciate your time and appreciate you coming. I've had some people ask if they can get a copy of your PowerPoint as well. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that with me, that would be great. And I can include that to all of them. But thank you so much for your presentation today.
Yeah, happy to be here. Please reach out if you have any questions. And absolutely, I'll send the PowerPoint and some of those resources along.
That would be perfect, Katie. Thanks.
Hey, thank you. Have a good day.
You too. So we were planning on taking the break from 1:30 to 1:40, so you guys get 4 extra minutes. So go ahead and stand up, walk away from your computers, go get a drink, go outside, and the sun is actually shining where I'm at the moment, which is very inviting. So I think I'm gonna go stand on my porch for a few minutes, but you guys walk away from your computers, go ahead and have do what you need to do, and we'll see you back at 1:40.
You guys took as much as I did out of that. It's so nice to hear that, and practical strategies and a lot of good things to think of when we start going crazy, I guess, all the stuff we have to do and that's going on. So with that said, I have a few updates for special ed I wanted to go through, and I have another one not on my list here that I'd like some feedback on. So first one, I've received questions about what Scram codes should be used for the if kids are receiving remote or online or some type of hybrid learning right now. That was a question that came in. So Scrum codes are those environment codes that we have for where students are receiving their special education services. And for this, always the first step we tell when I receive questions such as this is to first talk to your special ed director and discuss what they think you should do with this. But often special ed directors might not be familiar with the preschool Scram codes, because it's so different if it's a regular class or special ed. And what our office, I checked in with our office, the compliance team for all ages that we have in our office, and they're telling LEAs to put, if the student would be receiving their services in a regular education environment, then you would use that Scram code. If it's a special education environment, then it would be that code. It doesn't change to a home code or anything like that if a student is at home receiving services. Because of what's going on right now. If they're at home receiving services for something else, obviously you work through the decision tree of the code. But when we're talking about closures and quarantine and all that happening, you use the code for where they would be receiving services. So any questions on that?
Teresa, do you know if that's the same for school age kids too, or just for preschool?
It should be the same for all ages. That's what our office is telling all ages, because the K-12, they also have to do Scram, but their codes are totally different. But the same thing should be for the school age. If you have more questions about school age and even preschool, I'd still talk with your special ed director, make sure it's looking the same throughout your whole LEA, your whole district. Does that help, Beth?
Yes, thanks. We're going to discuss this tomorrow at special ed leadership team. So that's good information.
Yeah, that's the guidance we've received when we've reached out to our support at the federal level of what to use for those the codes. Well, they don't call them Scram, environment codes. We call them Scram. Any other questions on that or clarification? Okay, thanks. If you have any questions related to how to code or do things, let me know, because we're in a different time right now. RP2, so reaching potential through recommended practices. So RP. It's a program I've probably talked about last years. It's something that's been going on, I think, for about 6 years or so. And we have LEA sign in for support from our office. It's the program where we're working on engagement with family engagement and child engagement in the classroom. And there are training, coaching, so you'd have an internal coach in your LEA to support teachers, and then external coach is what we provide through the program, the RP2. And to work with teachers, there's data collection and analyzing data for engagement. It's this whole training support that lasts at least 3 years of support. If there's interest in this, let me know. If you're interested in hearing more about it, or interested in your LEA starting the process, or I say on this slide 2021 to 22 next school year, let me know. We're working on seeing what RP2 will look like for next year. This year we've been flexible because you have kids in person, out, teachers who don't want to add. So the programs that are using RP2 right now, it's more of a flexible There you have a leadership team that meets together and follows these benchmarks of quality of how to improve your program, type of thing like that. It's from our National TA Center, all the materials. But if there's interest in looking at this for your LEA or district, let me know so I can start planning and seeing what we need to do for next year. Any questions on that? And any comments on anyone that's in RP2 right now? Did I explain it clearly enough, or is there something that you could add? Okay, I guess I did, but go ahead and use the chat too if there's anything that I'm missing there. But so if you're interested, just let me know. We have external coaches and support, and it's a program-wide implementation type of thing. And you could pick a few classrooms if you don't want to do the full district. So we finished our data. So the third bullet point, the 3 indicators, all the LEAs report to our office, and then we report as a state to the Office of Special Education Programs on the federal level, OSEP. So the 3 preschool ones are 6, which is the SCRAM environment code, where are preschool students receiving services. 7 is outcomes, how preschool kids are doing, and that's UPODs. And 12 is the 3 to 3 transition, kids transitioning from Part C, birth to 3 programs to preschool, that they have an IEP in place by their 3rd birthday. That's indicator 12. So I'm preparing a presentation on those preschool indicators for what our office does. It's called Data Drill, and it's actually the same day as Roundtable in the morning. So some of your special ed directors might be involved with this, and we go that morning, it's through all the indicators, all 17. The 3 I highlight for you guys are just the ones with preschool, but there's like graduation and all these other ones. And based on how your district does on those indicators, each LEA, so district and charter schools, they receive a determination score, meets requirements, doesn't meet requirements based on all these indicators. So we hold a data drill to explain all the indicators in the data. So I am going to do that at the February roundtable, go through our data, just the preschool ones. So I'll just use basically the same presentation I'm sharing with the special ed directors. So that way, if they come to you with questions, you'll have the materials and you'll be able to explain more. They can always come to me. You can always come to me with questions. So I was going to tell you that I could show you how we did next to our targets on those 3 indicators. So that'll be next month.
What date is that, Teresa?
That is February 22nd. February 22nd. It's usually done in like 3 or 4 locations across the state, and it's in person. This year it's all online. So it's data drill downs on that day. We call them data drill downs, and LEAs look at their data. But I wanted to make sure you guys had the same information. So that will be in February. And then Linda had asked for resources. And these were the ones I could think off the top of my head sending out. So I believe you will have access to this PowerPoint with these hot links that will go to where you need them to go. So the first one is Jessica also included that will be going out with the newsletter. But ECTA, the Early Childhood Technical Assistance Center, created this whole video series of how preschool was done during the pandemic. And I think there were 5 or 6 states, and there's videos of the remote learning done in the home, providing services. There's videos of students coming back to their preschool class and various topics like that. So that's a link right there. It's a bunch of videos on their page to look through on that. Kim, I see your comment here. Do you know when the district directors will be getting the data for drill down? In the past, they received it prior to the meeting. I think it is prior to the meeting because they get their determinations, I think the end of January, because our report to OSEP is due February 2nd, I think. So it should be coming out this week. I'll find out and let you know for sure, but yeah, the data at those meetings, they get all the data on all 17 indicators for each LEA to look through and see. And then the next step, they have to write goals in the UPIP system. You might be involved with that too. Thanks, Kim. Then the ECTA, eNotes, they do a newsletter, the Early Childhood Technical Assistance Center. That's our technical assistance center for special education preschool. So I have a click here. You can subscribe to that. That's where I found out about the video series. So they send those out, I don't know, every couple of weeks. It's not too often. And then the US Department of Education, they have an early learning newsletter as well. So I put the link here, and not necessarily all special education, but early learning across the board. It's in partnership with the Office of Special Education. So that's a link there. Another one, another newsletter, the National Pyramid Model has a lot of information for social emotional behavior support, a lot of resources on their website. And I subscribe to their newsletter here as well, and then get those updates so I can see what they're developing, coming out with. Very strong. And the last one, LRP, is it's called a Special Education Connection, and it's really cool. If you have a question about any type of special education rule, law, case, anything, there is even a preschool section, but tons of materials, not only the cases, but then they have information about child fine, information about providing services during this time. There's a lot of information there, but it requires a username and password. We at Utah State Board of Education have set up the account that every LEA has access to it, but you have to talk to your administration to get the password and username, because it's by LEA. But once you get that from your administration, you can get on there, and there's training tips on different topics related to special ed. So and then they send out weekly emails of updates happening. So that's a good one, the LRP. So if you're not already accessing that for anything special ed law, talk to your director or your administration. All special ed, and if they don't have access, email me, because I can talk to someone and get your information for your LEA. Any questions on that? All those resources. Okay, thanks, Linda, for your comment. And two things that aren't on there that just came up. I have a question. I had a question from an LEA about using the Brigance for eligibility. Is anyone else using the Brigance for eligibility, like part of the eligibility process determination?
We looked into it a while ago, but our understanding was that it would not count as a standardized measure.
Yeah.
So but it's a lot of work for not counting as a standardized measure.
Thanks, Linda. That's what I was leaning towards too. And Michelle said not Jordan. Yeah, and that was your understanding as well. That's what they reached out to the company, this LEA, and that was what they received too. But I wanted to double check with this group. Oh, Tammy, use it as a screening tool. Thanks. If there's any questions, Tammy, I might have them reach out to you about how you're using it as a screening tool, if that's okay. Okay, great, thanks. The last thing, not on here, but this just came through my email. The Early Childhood Special Education Training Program at the University of Utah. They're requesting some grants from our office to provide places for students they asked that we have a pot of money for grants for higher ed for some of the teacher training programs, and they are finishing their application. And a couple of years ago, I asked you if there was a need for this, and you said yes. So they said, do you have updated data? I just got this email for this year of how many LEAs need early childhood special education teachers. So they can put this in their application, not necessarily list the names, but say that there is a high need. So this should be high on the list of funding grants to the University of Utah for this program. And I'll let Utah State know that information as well if they're applying for the grant. So thanks, Linda. Anyone throw out numbers or in the chat? I can just say there's about like 6 districts that have a need right now or something like that. I can just give her a little information to put in her report. Anyone have anything to share with that? Okay, thanks, Michelle. At least 3. And Linda, always a few. Yeah. Yeah, always hire at least a couple. That's helpful, Emily. Thank you. To hire a couple per year. Because this is an area sometimes gets overlooked when the funding is given to the higher ed programs. People don't always think of special education preschool, which is a required, which is the requirement you have to teach special ed preschool. Thanks, Leanne. This is helpful. Yeah, some leave or consider, oh, I hope we don't have teachers leave, but I know what you're saying right there with what's going on. And Kelly, thank you. And I'll just tally this. You can continue to put in the chat and it won't be like a list out, but at least they can put something that we know from districts that we need this. So thank you. I think that's all. Anyone have any other questions for me?
I actually have one.
Sure.
And it just has come up the other day, and I think that Laura Lee is maybe going to reach out to you on this too, but I thought with everybody here, maybe it would be helpful. And maybe my program is different than a lot, but in our K-3s, our youngest kids, they only usually come twice a week for 90 minutes. And then when the kids turn 3, they usually come twice a week for 330 minutes a week. And then when they turn 4, most of them come for 660 minutes a week. So it kind of builds as they get older. Not always, it's individualized too. But our question is, we received some clarification on amendments versus IEP meetings when we're changing times on IEPs. And our question is, do we have to do a full IEP meeting? Is it considered a major change to the IEP when they're just bumping up a level for gen ed time? Their sped times don't change very much, but that does cause a shift in the percentage of time. So do we actually have to have a full IEP meeting for every kid to make those changes at the end of the year for the next year?
Great question. I would say their time changes a little bit, but they're still receiving the same special ed services. If the makeup of the class stays the same, so it's still a regular ed or a special ed, that's not necessarily a big change.
That was what I was going to say, Linda. As long as those special ed minutes are not, that train of service is not changing greatly, you're just doing general ed, I would not have a full IEP meeting. I would do it just as amendment.
And then that was the second question is, do we even have to do it as an amendment?
I know, when I said that, I thought, I don't even know.
Yeah,
I
if
don't
you're
know.
not changing minutes, if you're still receiving services.
Because isn't it based on the special ed minutes that we are doing an IEP for?
Yeah. We've recently come out with technical assistance that it shouldn't be like the full day, like plopped on the IEP for students. Be broken out.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Teresa. We used to do the full day as well, and then we would do the special ed minutes out of it, and then everything else on the side was considered developmental minutes or something like that. We have since quit doing that. So you're still stuck with just those special ed minutes on your IEP, and you're not changing that. So it doesn't matter how long they come every day, you're only still giving those special ed minutes. So I would say not even an amendment. I'm going to take that back.
Yeah, and in Granite, we've done the thing. We don't account for the entire day on the IEP. We only account for the special ed service minutes. And then we've also guided our folks away from saying like, 20 minutes 2 times a week or something like that. We recommend generally that folks, that the IEP has monthly service. So there's a little bit of that ability to play around with those minutes depending on the circumstances from month to month. And so you're not tying yourself into this is absolutely happening 2 times a week. And then when they turn 4 and it changes to maybe 4 times a week or whatever, we've kind of had that going as a monthly service. And we don't run into those issues of having to amend every IEP right when that changes.
Yeah, Jordan kind of does the same. All of our related services is monthly, and then we just do weekly on the, classroom services, but not specified, bi-weekly or anything. It's just 15 minutes weekly. But then on the related services, monthly to give our OTs, speech, and all those a little bit more leeway.
Yeah, that makes good sense.
And then you wouldn't even have to do an amendment as long as it stayed the same placement, the same type of services and everything.
I would back you up on that. I don't know if I'd go to court over it, but I'd back you up all the way, Linda.
Yeah, it's always a special ed. The answer is depends. Depends on. Leanne wrote a comment here. They do amendment if it increases minutes at all, since when they bump up, they usually have to bump up sped minutes to double the speech, etc. So they do an amendment if it changes the overall sped service minutes, and put them mostly in as monthly minutes too, but it does usually increase the minutes per level. Thanks, Leanne.
Okay, thank you. That's super helpful. So one last follow up on it, I guess, is on. So we use Embrace, and there's a weekly bell-to-bell minutes at the top so that it can determine the percentage of sped time. If we don't do an amendment, can that just be a clerical change to change them from 2 days to 4? Or do we have to, or can we just leave it alone? What I'm worried about is that if I have a 3-year-old going to 4 and they're moving from 2 days to 4, and I don't do an amendment or do anything to the IEP, I transfer that kid to Granite, and Granite says, oh, this kid only came 2 days a week, but they're really coming 4 days a week now. Could we make that clerical change on Embrace, or do we have to have a meeting to do that? Or do we just leave it alone?
That's a great question, because that's not a compliance thing.
Right.
I would just leave it alone, because even if you're sending a kid up to Jordan and we deem that we can do that all in 2 days rather than 4, even though your programming go in 4 days, that doesn't necessarily mean and Jordan are going to get the 4 days if we can put those sped minutes in 2 days, right? So from program to program, you know what I'm saying? I mean, everyone kind of has their system that they go through, but it doesn't necessarily mean that every district's going to be doing the same. I just leave it. I wouldn't worry about the part going from district to district, because it's based on need, right? I don't know.
Would anyone else be super stressed about that if you got an IEP like that? It was different from what the parents say they were getting. To us, Joanna follows up on that. And it's kind of a big deal to her, but.
Linda, yeah, we always just talk to the parent about it being the minimum amount of minutes that they are receiving, that we could go over them, but this is the minimum they need. And that way it kind of throws that out, then they know that if they do move, that this is the amount of minutes that they do need, but we can always go over those minutes.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay.
Yes. And Emily said and Kim said, thinks it happens all the time with parents when they come from out of state. Yeah, especially out of state. They got so much variety there. Transfers in. But where on a compliance side, like strictly compliance, that's not anything that would be tracked or worried about. Sometimes those IEP systems go above and beyond. And that's more of that 80%, when they get into those K-12 12 codes that they have to have that percentage, but not so much with early childhood.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I'm good. Thank you. That was the best possible news.
Yeah. And if it comes up when you're talking to other people, let me know. I think I have a meeting scheduled in February with Alpine or something with Laura Lee, who is our compliance coordinator. So yeah, if you guys have any other questions? Thanks, Linda.
Are you throwing this out just for general discussion about anything when you say any other questions?
Yeah. Let's see. I think at the end we have time for questions.
Okay, I will hold my question then.
If there's special ed, let me know, Jessica or Jamie and Jared, if it's better to do it at the end or if you want to throw out special ed questions now.
Special ed questions are okay now, but general questions we were going to save until later.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. Any other special ed questions? Michelle, if you have one, feel
It's
free.
about the dot. So when do you want me to ask? Now or later?
Sure, you can ask now.
All I want to know is, how does everyone else keep up with all of the new kids coming in into your program that have to be put onto the dot, correct? When you have lots and lots of schools, like some of this us bigger, right now we have one person kind of doing that, and it's hard. Usually the teachers have to say, hey, I need these 10 kids added. Or are you letting your teachers add them as they come on? Are you letting your teachers move them from around? How does everybody else just handle the logistics of the dot? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you what we're doing. We've got 2,000 kids per year on, and it's kind of a nightmare, to be honest. Most of the time I'm adding them right now, but what we're trying to move to is that whoever enters them in Skyward, but we have a central secretary at the district. We have a gen ed secretary and a special ed secretary that do their registrations into our Skyward system. And what I want to do is train them that as they put kids in or take them out, that they also update the dot at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, we're not doing that, and it's difficult to keep up.
Yeah. Okay. But you're not letting like individual teachers in or anything like that?
Not at all.
Okay. Yeah, I'm doing what you're doing, Linda, as it comes. I'm trying to keep up on it with one person, and I don't have as many kids as you do, but even with what I've got, it's hard. And then I get inundated, right around parent teacher conference, and you can do it. It's just, I'm wondering if there's a more efficient way. And I've thought about the exact thing you're doing, but that still would be 2 entries, right? Skyward doesn't talk to dot in any way, so it would still be changing from place to place, but that secretary would probably be more up on it than anybody, just because she knows who's coming and going. All right, thank you.
Bev and Carvin said she has her teachers enter the dot new kids, but they're small. And Tammy said the same thing, but also smaller, let the teachers add the students. So kind of a mix of what happens there. Thanks. Any other questions, special ed related? Okay, anything comes up, email, call me anytime. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Teresa. We'll move on to the next section here on professional development. As most of you are probably aware, we held our preschool workshop last Friday, and yeah, it went fairly well. There's always a few little tweaks and bumps with technology, but we wanted to open up just for a few minutes here to hear whatever feedback you all have from this. Specifically, we'd like to hear what worked, what didn't work, and then also what you would like to see for the next preschool workshop next year. So yes, if there's any feedback, go ahead and unmute or pop it in the chat box. Okay, Leanne said, you did an excellent job, even with moving through the technical glitches. The keynote was great too. Yes, Cheryl Cheryl Ellsworth was the keynote and gave some really good information about working with families in our programs. Yeah, good. Okay, Bev said the keynote was great. Okay, any, aside from technology, I guess even if you want to talk about technology, anything that didn't work well? Brittany also chimed in that the excellent keynote, timely and relevant. What about working towards next year? Any recommendations? In the previous years, pre-COVID, we've had this as more of a regional workshop. We're thinking about doing a similar type of thing again. What are your all thoughts? If we had multiple smaller workshops held around, assuming we can get back together in person, would that be a good model, or did people like all together? Brittany, I love the virtual format. It was easily accessible. Love having available online with recorded sessions. Okay.
Maybe what we could do is do like remote ones, but hold on, like locational ones, regional ones, but maybe one of them is a virtual one. So we kind of always have access to the recordings.
Yeah, Madeline, I enjoyed having a front row seat to every presenter. Right. So yeah, kind of a hybrid type of thing where perhaps there are regional based ones, but they're recorded for putting on, putting on lines for people to access. We have here, kind of going along with the theme for today with self-care. There was a presentation from Chris from Washington School District on organizational behavior management and strategies. I'm going to put this link, the link to the folder from that presentation in the chat here. The video recording from that, that session is in this folder. So if you would like to go and watch that, if you didn't get a chance on Friday, you can go to this Google folder and access that information. And speaking of accessing the recordings, online, we also, this was one of the things that we talked about on Friday. We will be putting the links to the recordings of all the sessions that allowed recordings into a Canvas course. And on Friday, we had people sign up, with their email to, if they want to be added to that Canvas course so they can access it. We'll also be doing with the Canvas course, accessing the videos of the presentations. We'll have a little bit of a reflection activity with it to give credit for people who want to watch additional ones. If you did not get to sign up, or if your staff need to sign up to be able to access the recordings through the Canvas Canvas space, I just put the link to the survey in the chat box there. Basically, we'll just need people's email. We had 104 of the participants, which is a pretty good portion of the people that participated, sign up for this already. But if there are staff in your programs who would still like to sign up to access those, please distribute this survey link for them to provide their email for that. Okay.
So Jared, I just have a couple thoughts. This is Lorene.
Okay.
So the virtual is nice, especially if you don't have to get subs. But there is something said from gathering in person. And I think especially for some of our staff that doesn't get that opportunity to just be in the same room with other people that are doing the same things they are and giving them the opportunity to collaborate, I think is big. So I would be a fan for having something in person as well as maybe having the option of online, like we're still doing, that they can access later and can still get credit for it. The other hard thing with just doing virtual is when we couldn't get into a session. So if there were technical issues, there was no way to, you jump into a session and you're partway in, but it was also you. So also having the person that we would contact if we're not able to get in it or if it wasn't working, because even at the beginning, like the keynote speaker, like I couldn't get in, and I kept trying, and by the time I got, I mean, obviously people were, but I was having issues, but I wasn't sure who to contact. So poor Jessica got the brunt of that. But, you know, those kinds of things, I think those just need to be walked through and that information shared so that one person isn't getting all of those things. But that's my 2 cents with that.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, definitely with the technical challenges, it did make it fairly tricky. I'm glad that you were able to eventually get into the sessions. One of the nice things about having them available online is that if you miss a portion of one because of technical issues, you'll be able to go pick it up again. But I totally agree, Lorraine, that there is definitely a benefit of having people get together in the same location so that they can share those ideas and kind of network coordinate. So yes, I don't think that this will be a permanent virtual workshop or conference, but those ideas of recording to make available for people outside of the time, kind of an asynchronous model along with the joining in person might be the way to go. Great. Okay, so the next thing, so yes, there's the Canvas course link or the link to sign up for the Canvas. Please have your staff complete that or you yourselves if you would like to have access to those, and we'll be adding content to that over the next couple of weeks to make that available. Okay, so the next thing, the standards implementation training. The next one is this Friday, January 29th. We'll have science and social science standards. The email for the standards implementation training for those people who signed up in Midas went out today. There is a short pre-assignment for the social studies section. So if you have staff signed up for the social studies, please have them follow the link to the Nearpod activity. Basically, it's a way for them to learn what the content is for the social studies standards before they get to the day on Friday, so they can really get into it more. Jamie posted, once Canvas is released, please know that they have 30 days from Friday to watch the Lakeshore STEAM session. Right, so the STEAM session is one that will be going away after 30 days. That's on the Canvas course from the workshop. So yes, if people want to pick that one up sooner rather than later. Okay, so yes, so this Friday, Science and Social Studies. The final standards implementation session will be on March 5th. That'll be Physical Education and Fine Arts. And we have, see, I think it's on the next slide. We'll talk about that on the next slide as far as signing up. The next thing, Standards Roadshow. Please make note, the one for Southwest Utah, the Southwest Utah region, again, delivered virtually, but in the regional model will be February 19th. But the final two, the Standards Roadshows for the Southeastern Utah region and the Northern Utah region, we've had to adjust the date. So the new dates for the Southeast Utah will be April 2nd. The new dates for April 6th, for Northern Utah will be April 16th. We had to adjust these because the State Board of Education, state board meetings, which we're required to attend, conflicted with those previous times. And so please make note, update your calendar as necessary, so that if you're in the Southeastern regions or the Northern regions, your staff can join on those days.
Jared, I'll jump in real quick. When I was rescheduling those, I was able to get like most of the districts that were okay with those dates, but I know there's a couple programs that are unavailable on those new dates. You're more than welcome to attend the other dates if possible. We wanted to do it regional so you had a chance to meet people in your area, but if it doesn't work, you're more than welcome to attend. And like the next bullet says, which I think you'll say, is we will have a recording later on as well.
Right.
Can I
Thanks,
ask a
Jessica.
question?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'm Phil Dumb. Is this the same thing that we already did in St. George?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
perfect.
your guys' was the first one on October 9th.
Perfect. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure I'm not completely off my rocker. Thank you.
And it's still, for the most part, the same content. We just, yeah, it's same type of information about the implementing the new standards. So you're fine. So yes, as Jessica pointed out, both the standards implementation and the standards roadshows will be recorded and made available through Canvas. We can't require attendance for professional development because of the issues around getting substitutes and a lot of the challenges. We schedule them for Friday because I know that a lot of programs are not in session on Fridays. However, if your program can't attend on the Fridays, you just know that you will be able to, or the staff will be able to access both the standards implementation and the standards roadshow through Canvas, and there will be some reflection and some, for the standards implementation, some developing professional development assignments for them to do in order to get the USBE credits for those courses. Which reminds me, one other thing, for those of your staff who are seeking USBE credits for the standards implementation, this Friday we'll be having a pre-meeting at 8:45 for all of those people who need USBE credits to just go over the requirements for those. Okay, the question, how long will the roadshows be available on Canvas? Good question.
I think we could have them forever. I don't know about monitoring them for PD credit.
Right. Yeah, we'll probably need to put a cap on how long they will need to for the USBE credit, but yes, we can put them on indefinitely for being able to access. Okay, there's a question. If we're in Northeastern, which one do we attend? Okay, never mind. Okay, sometimes all right, we got it. Okay, so the next thing on professional development, the Utah Early Childhood Conference, the UAYC / Office of Child Care Conference, will be on March 26th and 27th. March 26th is the Leadership Day, and the keynote for the Leadership Day is John Gordon. He's a best-selling author and motivational speaker. He's worked with a lot of large, very successful companies, and has a soft spot in his heart for early childhood also. It's a great opportunity to receive training from him. And then the keynote for the Saturday session, the main session, is Danita Dinger, and she does a lot of work with play-based learning and meeting standards through play-based learning. So that both of those keynotes should be very beneficial for a lot of staff. One thing to note is that the deadline for early bird pricing for that is February 5th. And so it's just coming up in a couple of weeks. So if you want to sign up yourself or sign up your staff, it's a little bit cheaper if you sign up before March 5th. Finally, the letters training, the Train the Trainer training, will be coming up February 8th through 10th, and then the 12th. This is the rescheduled from last year. So it's finally going to happen February 8th through 10th, and then February 12th. So any questions about any of these professional development opportunities? Okay, Jessica, can you move to the next slide? Thank you. So this is just the reminder for the standards implementation team training. We've completed the September 18th and October 30th. We have the 29th and the January 29th and the 5th. There's the information for the MIDAS course number for the standards implementation, 58035. And then there's the information about the Early Learning Standards Roadshow. Let's see, I don't see the, oh, there it is, the MIDAS course number 58314. Okay, so Jessica, can you go to the next slide here, please? Okay, so we are finally into the CDA cohort. We have the first cohort going now. We began this month. We have 27 participants who are signed up for this first group. For those of you who have staff who are part of this cohort, the cohort 1, Their first assignment is due tomorrow. They need to submit 1 week's lesson plan that includes children's goals and adaptations for children with special needs, which means that if they are in a situation where they don't have children with special needs, they need to create an adaptation as if there were children with special needs in their program. And then, oh, let's see, it's gone. And then the other is just a 1 week's menu that will be used for a future assignment. So those are due tomorrow, and then we'll have our first monthly cohort check-in meeting on Thursday from 3:45 to 5:15. We do have 14 people in the second group. These are people who are still waiting on licenses to be processed for to access the CDA courses online. There's the possibility, depending on how long that might take, that we can collaborate with Care About Childcare through Department of Workforce Services to have that second group of 14 people go through the CDA process through that route. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. We haven't made a firm decision on that, but depending on when licenses come through and what the options are, that's what we're looking at. So yes, are there any questions about the CDA cohort?
This is Lorene again.
Okay.
And I have quite a few actually.
Wonderful, great.
I don't know if you just want to communicate later. I don't know.
Go ahead and ask in case there's questions that other people have too related to it.
Well, I know ours is a little bit off, but I have one that's in the first cohort. She still doesn't have her book, and I don't know if she even knows how to log on for the modules. So don't know. And then I have somebody that's in cohort number 2, but that is very anxious to just keep going and get going, and is already working on assignments even though she's not on there. So not sure. And then when they come to me with questions, who is it specifically that they're supposed to contact or different things? Because there's a lot of information that I don't necessarily know. Done the CDA obviously before. I don't have the new version of the book. And then how you're doing assignments versus how the book is having them or says to do assignments, if those are exactly the same, or if you're changing some things for them to do or not.
Good question. Yeah, so the assignments, each of the assignments will lead into the portfolio, and so they need to follow the requirements that are put in the book, that are outlined in the book. The order of when they will do the assignments might be a little bit off from what they would do if they just started from the beginning and went right through, and that's basically just to help break it up into bite-sized pieces. If they do have questions, please refer them to me and or Jessica. I think I've been emailing back and forth with the staff that is still waiting for the book, which we need to check because it should have been in the materials with the letters and the PEEP materials. So we need to check up on that to find out what happened with that. And then for the person that's waiting on the second, sorry, what was that?
I was wondering if Lorraine got her PEEP materials from Fran.
I did.
And the book wasn't there?
No.
I'll double check because maybe Fran just forgot to give that part to you.
Oh, I don't know. I dumped the book.
Okay.
I didn't open the box, Jessica. So whatever was in the box is what I gave her.
Hey, my bad.
Okay, we'll check to see on our site to see what we can find. Yes, having the book won't be absolutely imperative right at the very beginning. It helps with knowing what's required for the assignments, but I put the basically the information nearly word for word from the book into the assignment that's on Canvas. And so if they follow the instructions that are on the assignment in Canvas, they will be fine with that. It'll be helpful later on as when we get to the points where they do the their reflections and their personal statements. But hopefully we can get the book to her by then so that she can have that as the resource. But yes, any questions, refer them to me and or Jessica.
Thanks.
All right.
I have
Any other questions? Sorry.
I've got one. So a few of the teachers signed up back in August, and it's just getting started now, and they're really concerned about not getting it done in time because of the grant requirements. Is this going to be held against them, or like they're wondering, should they drop out of this and just do a really fast program that they can get through before next school year starts? Or this is kind of a full year cohort, right?
Yeah, my intention has been that we will like make a note of it with the grant, but because we've been trying to get legislation changed, which I can't do this year because of COVID and stuff, but we know that it's just been ridiculous. So as long as you guys are showing good intentions and working towards it, my plan on monitoring is just to make a note of that, because I've never agreed with that requirement. it is in code, but I think if you guys are showing that you're doing all you can, then you'll be in good standing.
And they are, so, okay, thank you.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Well, if you do have any questions, or if the staff who are participating in the cohort have questions, please do refer them to me and or Jessica.
So we just wanted to do a quick reminder about Midas. Every time we hold a PD, we get a lot of questions on a lot of, because you have a lot of staff turnover. So just make sure that they know that if they need a Midas account, they need to send all the information in blue here to the Midas email, the midas@schools.utah.gov, and then they'll create a login for them and email them back with the credentials. And then if they are new to Midas, and a lot of us are new to Midas because Midas is new, has an update, there's that tutorial that's linked on these slides that can kind of guide them through the new process. So kind of just make a habit of giving them that information if they're going to be participating in PD that's ran by us. A lot of you use Midas as well for your PD. Unfortunately, there's not the ability for them to create their own account on the site, so they do have to email. So just keep that in mind. Any questions regarding anything else we've discussed today, or any questions regarding?
So Jess, there is one question that came in through Beverly, and it's on the next slide.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to Beverly's question. So Beverly did ask, how are you guys evaluating lead teachers and pairs in your program? I'm guessing, from what I remember, this is kind of like that annual evaluation, right, Beverly, that you do for your licensed teachers. Is there an equivalent for?
Yes, like an annual performance evaluation for, specifically, I was looking at for lead paraprofessional level teachers.
So feel free to unmute and share how that's going, or what your programs are doing. If you do an annual review for those lead teachers or lead paras, what that looks like.
This is Chelsea Beck. So I created a specific, it's a fidelity checklist, but it's like specific to the program. It's not based off of a curriculum. And that's like our leads still do like observer tab and stuff, but which observer tab is great, but it doesn't align with preschool most of the time. And so I created my own specific one that I use, and that's how we do it with our lead. Because we have CDAs, so they're pairs that are leads.
And I did kind of come up with a tool. The superintendent asked me to come up with a tool for that. But I guess my main thinking in coming up with something is how do you weigh expectations for somebody who is paraprofessional CDA or associate level versus your certified special ed teacher? There's obviously different requirements, and the pay is quite a bit different. So some of the expectations are kind of similar. So I was just trying to weigh in my head how in depth to make it, and wanted feedback around that type of thing.
I don't see anyone from Davis on the call right now, but that's where I taught before. And I was like the lead special ed teacher, and then I had a lead co-teacher that was the reg ed teacher. And then we had our paras that weren't even considered lead paras, but they have their system that's called like Davis Evaluates, and they had to create goals just like I did and had to meet with like our principal, our admin, as much as I did. And so we just kind of had like a list of, like different areas that you could select a goal. So that was good because then they could choose their own on what area they felt like they needed to improve on and then monitor throughout the year. So you might want to reach out to either Amy Garlick or Shelley Fenton and learn more about their program. So I felt like that was achievable because it was kind of they got to choose their own goal that they felt was that they could reach.
Thanks, Jessica.
Yep. Any other comments regarding that?
We have another question about the child nutrition program. We started the process and have watched the trainings and that kind of thing, but we're just wondering if anyone else, where everybody is in that process and if they've looked into it and thrown it out or if they are doing it. We just need some feedback. We're kind of stuck.
So as a reminder for those of you that maybe didn't move down this path, when we started to have to do the childcare licensing requirements for the grantees, part of that new provider training talked about getting SNAC covered through the child nutrition program, and we had someone come. So if any other programs have started moving down that track, what's your experience been?
I started to go down that track. My child nutrition program director wanted to do the not super snack, so not the meal, and get approval through the other way like they do, I guess, for after school club for its snack. He said he filled out the form for that, but I haven't heard anything since. But I know he was just trying to do like a blanket because if our whole district is certified under free and reduced or whatever, then he doesn't have to, we just have to take numbers anyway, but I need to check back in with him. So that's as far as we've gotten.
Okay, thanks, Lorraine. Has anybody else done it or gone? We figured that we have to be our own entity, and we were not going to do the whole meal part, but just the snack part, and that's kind of where some of our questions are, but maybe nobody else went down that way yet.
Well, Leanne, we kind of did the same thing as Lorraine. We're kind of in the same process. It's basically thinking about which way we want to go. I've met with our nutritionist specialist and she said we could go either way, but this year it's more cost effective to do the meal program because it's free this year. And she also talked about even, getting us on the drive-by list kind of thing. So my problem with that whole thing is how much waste would be involved in trying to do the 5 categories of food. The other one would cost us a little bit more. And so, yeah, this month we've just been trying to think about which way to do it. And I haven't met with my team leaders yet to come up with a solution.
Thank you. That does help. Have you watched the trainings? Because there's a lot more questions as you watch it and paperwork and all of that. So,
yeah, we would probably, the nutrition specialist in our district said that she would rather she was over it than we were over it and be doing all of the paperwork part because she already is doing it for all the other schools. So it's just an easier fit for us.
Any other questions or comments? If not,
Jessica, I do. I read some of the questions in the chat and I was wondering about those, like the eligibility form. Do you know if it's going to change much this year?
So I think I haven't looked at it yet. So the federal government puts out new eligibility requirements every year, and then I adapt the form. So those numbers will probably shuffle just a little bit like they usually do. So yeah, I will look into that and get that form sent out hopefully this week. It doesn't usually take me that long. I just need to get it changed and then send it over to DWS to get their approval.
Sounds good. So the risk factors and everything should be the same. It would just be the
nothing
money on the
is
income.
changing. It'll just be that income.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Yeah, no questions of the risk factors changing. The only thing that's going to session this year is our $3 million ask again to hopefully increase funding. We had some language changes that we would have liked to have made, but there was some confusion and some discussion of going down a different path. And so that didn't get happening. So for sure, I would expect some language changes moving forward. Probably next session, Governor Cox is team preschool, and there's been some discussion of giving the state board like official guidance over preschool and like changing the Utah Constitution. I don't know how quickly that's going to happen. So we could be updating the school readiness code next year. We could be overhauling it. So just keep holding on. There's progress being made. I would have liked to see some language changes in the bill this year, but because we were confused on what the timing was and what was going to be happening, that didn't happen. But we have the $3 million ask in. Hopefully that'll be granted. So yeah, slow progress, but we're getting there. There's really good discussions happening, which makes me hopeful for the future. So yeah. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we will let you guys go. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for all you do. It's always great to see your faces and hear from you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. You guys are doing a great job. We appreciate you.
Thanks. See ya.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, everybody.